today we're going to talk about a dilemma that I think every single card collector faces at some point along their journey. And I want to talk through it today because it does relate to Grail cards and the ability to make a big chunk of change, a big profit off the back of, buying and selling one of these things. And I want to get the advice from you guys down in the comments below on what you would do in this exact situation, because it does relate to a friend of mine. It does relate to a vintage baseball card, and this individual is just an average Joe. So the ability to make some money here could be life-changing in some aspects. And it essentially relates to a card, like I said, a vintage baseball card that he bought a few months ago. And I will caveat and say, I'm going to keep my comments here quite vague on the card itself because I don't want it to impact maybe his potential sale or anything like that. But it's essentially a rare baseball card that has some in-person autos on there. And he bought these for, let's say, $10,000 USD. That's not the amount of money, but that's the example I'm going to use. Bought it for 10 grand, and he's now got the opportunity after, only a few months to make 3 to 4 times his money off the back of that card because he's getting some pretty crazy offers. And, this individual is, an average Joe. So that's a lot of money to him. And it's a lot of money to, I'm assuming, most of you guys as well. And, he's in a bit of a dilemma, like I said, because this is a card that he basically bought with the intention to sell long term. And he's trying to build out a collection of, these vintage goats across all sports to hopefully leave something to his kids that they can sell when they're in a pickle, or he can use to fund something for them, right? Pay for college, pay for a house, maybe down the line, right? That's the mindset that this individual is going with. And he spent $10,000 on this thing with the hope of holding it long term because it is so rare. It does have in-person autos on there. I can't recall if I did say that. And both those individuals that signed that card have since passed away. So it's quite a small population. There's not many that are graded higher. It's a very, very rare card. And that's what he's sort of struggling with right now because he is an average Joe. He has the ability to sort of sell this card for 3 to 4 times what he paid, pocket that $10,000 that he paid for that card in that question, and then have, $20,000 to $30,000 of money to essentially play with. And that gives him the opportunity to maybe buy some other cards as well for free. Basically, they didn't cost him anything, right? Because he's playing with profits. And that's what he's sort of trying to work out what he should do in that instance, because whilst he might be able to buy, more common vintage cards with that profit that he's made, will he regret selling that card? Will he regret selling the card that's a little bit rarer? And that's where, again, like I said, he's sort of struggling with what he should do. So he came to me for advice and I talked him through, a few situations. I sort of flip-flop my way through the whole thing because I kept changing my mind on what exactly I would do in that instance, because the regulars on the channel will know that I'm a huge supporter of, funding your hobby through the hobby. A lot of my big cards, because I don't like spending money on cards, I've talked this before, I grew up quite poor. I feel guilty when I'm spending money on cards. I've got a wife, I've got a child, and another kid on the way. So it's like I'm spending money on cards, but I could be spending money towards them. So what I try and do is buy cards to sell and then buy the cards for my PC with profit. So technically, I could still be putting that money towards my family, but it allows me to enjoy the hobby without any money out of pocket. So, when he first came to me, I was like, sell it because you've got all that money to play with. You can basically buy other cards and have those for free and have the peace of mind that they haven't impacted you all that much. And he's also in a situation where he's looking to start a family as well, and he wants to go on a holiday. So not only would he get his money back, he could go on a holiday, he could put money away for his kid, and then still have money to buy some pretty cool, vintage cards. So, from that lens, it's like, well, that's a no-brainer, right? You've got all this money, all this profit, you can go ahead and have fun, but then at the same time, you're not getting a card that's going to be anywhere near as rare as the thing you sold in the first place. So that's sort of where, things are at. And I want to know what you guys would do in that exact situation yourself. Would you, sell this incredibly rare card that you probably won't ever be able to replace purely because the pricing on that might increase significantly down the line? And even if it doesn't go crazy and it sort of stays the same price, that's going to be something that collectors, true collectors, right, the people that are actually buying and chasing this sort of stuff are going to want to sell because it's so scarce, it's so rare, it's hard or near impossible to replace. So that's the alternative. Do you sort of sell it and then have FOMO for the rest of your life, but have the benefit of having extra money, having other vintage cards in your collection that are more affordable, but still somewhat expensive, that are more readily available, but still rare, just not rare compared to that one card? What would you do in that situation? Would you keep that rare card or sell it for profit to then put into other cards to then, hopefully make a bigger collection in the end, right? A more diverse collection. So it's a bit of a weird one. I think financially, all things will even out down the line. So even though you're selling the one card and then you're putting that money into 5 or 6 other cards, you know, technically the money should be the same in 10, 20, 30, 40 years time, irrespective of how scarce that other card is. But, you know, who really knows? But I want to know what you would do in that situation. Would you go down the collector's path, or try and be a bit more sensible and get the money to put towards other things as well? It's always a hard thing to try and work out and do, but I want to hear what you guys have to say down below. And this is a good video because I like talking about this stuff. And one of the things I've got brewing for next week is to talk about, you know, how I approached my collecting in 2023 and go through maybe my top buys and sells and highlight some of the same themes that I talked to for why I sold certain cards that I really, really liked in order to get into cards that I like even more. So stay tuned for that next week. If you are looking forward to it, please let me know down below as well, because I know some people don't like watching that kind of content from me, but you know, as I've done since day one, I like to try and shake things up. Yes, I am somebody that comments on news topics and all that sort of stuff and goes after people here and there, but I still do like talking about cards because I am a card collector, right? I am a collector at heart. So it is what it is. If you don't like it, sorry, but it's probably going to come out. But if you do like it, let me know why and what else you want to hear me talk about in that video in particular. So I'm rambling now, as I do often do. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think about this one deal. What would you do? And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.